G'day everyone, I am Kemo Sabi, the man with a plan from the land down under, and this is my review of Terra Olympus, a science fiction graphic novel fulfilled on the Kickstarter platform. The creators are currently funding a second volume on Kickstarter, and I believe both volumes will soon be available on the Indiegogo platform. There are several considerations to take into account when it comes to choosing your crowdfunding platform. Kickstarter is definitely more well known, but they take a larger percentage of your final funding amount, and they enforce strict rules about the type of content they will and won't platform. If you're going to put your books on Kickstarter, you've got to be aware that many in the Comicsgate community refuse to support any project on Kickstarter because of their choice to ban your boy Zach's book Jawbreakers. If you put your project on Kickstarter, there's a chance you're going to miss out on thousands of potential backers. Indiegogo, on the other hand, might not have the same reach as Kickstarter, but they do take a smaller percentage of the campaign's funding amount, and it's a platform of choice for many hardcore Comicsgaters. That means a project is more likely to be seen favourably and supported by the movement. Terra Olympus is a 51-page black and white comic. A digital copy of the first volume is sold for $5 Australian, and the campaign raised $6 grand. The second campaign has a similar price point and is on track to raise nearly double the amount of the first. The current campaign also has a cost-effective way to get both volumes for backers who need to catch up. These creators are grinding, putting in the work to slowly and steadily build their product up, raising awareness and making progressively better iterations available to consumers. This is a model for long-term success, playing the long game, and if you're serious about being a comic book creator, you could do worse than emulating this model. Imagine if these guys managed to double their money each campaign. 10k becomes 20, 40, 80. In a few years they could be pulling 6 figures per campaign between them. Not everyone can be a Comicsgate success story right out the gate. Success looks like many different things to different people. It might look like a 40k book on your first campaign, but what about the follow-up? What about a sequel? Customer retention from project to project? What if the customers who bought your book for your personality or the way that you entertain online, rather than the quality of the content of the book itself, don't come back? Success might look like a tidy 5k campaign fulfilled on time, with work started on the next book and a 5-figure goal set. I think a lot of people see the success of Comicsgate campaigns and want to emulate that, which is fine. Who doesn't like or want more money? But as has been demonstrated many times already, without prior name recognition combined with significant web presence, without your own platform, be it YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, or some combination of the three, those 6-figure funding amounts aren't necessarily realistic. And that's okay. We can't all expect Zach's success or EVS's success. Define success for yourself. Start small and grind towards that brass ring. These guys have impressed me with their product and their grind. These guys know about sizzling starts, the idea of dropping your protagonist right into the action. It doesn't have to be a firefight or fleeing a tumbling boulder, but something that has conflict, some sort of action, even if it's only verbal or emotional action. We don't have any rolling intro screens or slow pans into the city. We're dropped right in the middle of a scene where 2 engineers, Mia and Steph, are trying to figure out what's going on with the filtration system. Steph tells us whatever's caught in the system will be sucked out into the vacuum, so we can assume they're in space. Mia recognises from the dimensions of the obstruction that it's a cat that belongs to a girl in the agriculture sector. This makes me think they're on some sort of space station or space city, maybe like the space hulks found in Warhammer 40k, vast floating spaceships large enough to fit entire nations within them. Mia flaunts procedure, harnesses herself to a tether and leaps into the vent shaft. Steph warns her it's potentially lethal, but she says she's done it all before many times. The retraction on the line fails and Steph has to haul her back up to safety. The next scene has them fighting, but the gloves and the way it's framed makes it clear it's some sort of bout or sanctioned fight, not some random brawl that doesn't connect with their previously established relationship to each other. Mia wins the fight just as their boss walks in with the new recruit. This is well written. Just as the boss is telling the new recruit how tight a ship she runs and how she doesn't tolerate any insubordination, they come across half the crew gambling and cheering on a brawl in the locker room. The new recruit is called Hannah, and Mia is tasked with getting her settled in. We're treated to some fantastic art, dense urban buildings and towering banks of technology and space-age buildings as the two get to know each other. Here we get some solid information on the world, and Stephen Koch, the writer, has cleverly slipped the information into some very natural-sounding dialogue. Rather than dumping stacks of information on us about the abandonment of Earth by mankind and the alien overlords that might have been responsible for it, these events are hinted at, hinting at a larger universe, one we are unofficially promised we will be allowed to explore. Mia cuts the chat short because it was getting a little too real, and she gives Hannah her SDT, a system diagnostic tool. Hannah mentions a few times that she really wanted to be an explorer out in space searching for new worlds to inhabit. She doesn't really seem to like her chosen profession. Mia spends a lot of time, 3 pages in fact, explaining how the data collection from the fan that supplies Terra Olympus its air works. I feel like this is a little Chekhov's gun-ish. We wouldn't be getting this much information about the fans if we weren't going to need it later on. There are exceptions to this rule, especially in sci-fi, of course. Star Wars doesn't worry too much about the science of how everything works, and that's fine. That largely suits the audience. From what I've seen, Star Trek offers a little more detail and consistency towards how things tick, but it's still mostly hand-wavium. The media that offers really hard sci-fi, detailed descriptions of FTL and anti-grav drives do so because that's how they're marketed. Just like there's an audience for the super realistic and grim medieval era fiction, so too is there an audience for the super hard sci-fi fictions. I like them all personally. I'm glad we have a choice. Science is pretty hard in this book. That is, it's realistic, but we aren't bogged down too much on the details of how. We get a lot more of the what, and that suits me right down to the ground. The how of things doesn't always help me enjoy the story more, and in a comic book your real estate for story is always going to be limited anyway. Hannah stumbles upon Mia's attraction to Steph, and to nip the conversation in the bud, Mia offers to go and watch a shuttle launch with Hannah, who is keen to watch the expedition crew take off. We cut to the commander of Terra Olympus, Commander Storm, meeting with the captain of the expedition crew. They talk about some truth they both know, something both we and the characters can't know about yet. The expedition commander says he hopes they're both wrong about what they think is out there. I love me some good foreshadowing, and this book has it in spades. Stefan is at his desk, questioning his faceless superior on the wisdom of his choices. The faceless voice tells him to proceed as planned and then threatens Steph. Don't make me question your loyalty. Could the voice be from Commander Storm? Maybe, but we've already seen her acting nefariously. If it was her, why not just show her again? I think this is another player, and the way they're talking makes them sound like some kind of cult or extremist religion. The pained look Steph has on his face makes me think he really doesn't want to do what he's been tasked with doing. And this makes me think whatever he's going to do will bring him into conflict with Mia, which he doesn't want because we get the vibe that her feelings are at least a little reciprocated. Mia's worked out something is wrong. Data has been altered to hide manipulation of the fan. Steph tries to get her to forget about it and look the other way, but he's holding a gun behind his back the whole time. This was really subtle. I didn't realise that's what he was doing until we get this rear point of view shot. She clocks him before he can draw his weapon and she flees, stowing away on the expedition craft. The story ends with Mia, on the run, a fugitive, stowed away on an interplanetary spacecraft with no way of getting home. The epilogue has Steph talking with his boss again, whoever it is. The boss tells Steph if he can't find Mia, he will, and the implication is that it would be unpleasant for everyone involved. The back part of the book has some nice concept art and character sketches, a cover for Volume 2 and a quick rundown of some of the other books Stephen Cock has written, along with websites, Facebook and Twitter handles, which is a nice touch and should be the standard in this day and age. This book is very well written. The dialogue is smooth and with only a few exceptions, very realistic. These feel like real characters with real lives and real emotions. They have loves and hates and quirks. Mia is an engineer that's a daredevil risk-taker brawler who blushes when a crush is even mentioned to her. The veteran team leader is selling out his own crew, his own city and his own people. He feels conflicted about doing so. This is some nice foreshadowing and adds another layer to the story. If Terra Olympus was just quirky girl engineer gets into trouble Volume 1, I wouldn't have enjoyed it so much. This book has lots of layers, lots of authenticity, drawing from a wide range of loved and recognisable sci-fi media. I get hints of Firefly, The Expanse, Pitch Black, Judge Dredd and Prometheus, all from this comic book. The story has a firm sci-fi feel masked by hard sci-fi conventions. The realism, the industry, the density and the sprawling packed city makes Terra Olympus feel very real, very plausible. You could well believe this might one day be the future of mankind. The art has a great European heavy metal feel. It's a little sketchy in some places, but where it shines like a star, giving us fantastic pages and panels like this. Yeah, the art is a little shaky in a few panels, just here and there, but it's not enough to pull you out of the story, and I'll take something like this, something with style and substance and soul, over whatever She-Hulk's got going on these days. I've noticed this in a few crowdfunded books, usually black and white ones, and usually ones where they render traditionally and use inks and washes to get shades of grey. It might be the scanning method or the type of ink and paper, but you can see pen and ink lines really clearly in some places. This might be a deliberate choice. It certainly gives the world a lived-in, tactile, even shabby feeling, which suits the story. If it's a deliberate choice, it works, and it certainly does its job. This bit confused me. The gloved hands holding the SDT, I thought it was Stefan sabotaging the fan or something, because both he and Mia have the same gloves. This is where some colour would help. Black and white can be a budget or stylistic choice, and it comes with advantages and disadvantages. One disadvantage is that sometimes it's hard to tell who's who. Sometimes transitions are tricky to follow. The advantage to colour is keyed-in hair and clothing colours or skin colours. They help us distinguish one character from another. Digital formats also add to the confusion because depending on the PDF reader you're using, there might not be a clear distinction between one page and the next. so you aren't getting the natural break from one scene on one page to another scene on the next page that you'd experience with a paper copy of the book. I'm not the biggest fan of sci-fi in comics, and that's not because I don't like sci-fi or I don't like comics, or even sci-fi in comics. And I believe comics are pretty much the best vehicle for sci-fi. It has the visual advantage over novels, but the cost to make advantage over TV, video games, and movies. My hang-up with sci-fi and comics is that I'm a salty old man who wants my cape shit all the time on time. That being said, Terra Olympus was to me what sci-fi comics could or should be. This book would feature perfectly in the pages of Heavy Metal, even more so if Mia or Henna had a gratuitous getting changed into a spacesuit scene for the cheesecake crowd. This is a nuanced story with strong world building and some nice solid familiar plot points being lined up for the future. It hits all the right points in your brain. It's familiar enough to be welcome to spend some time in your thoughts, but not so familiar that you get distracted. There's so many ways for the creative team to go with this book that I couldn't possibly list them. Mia could hijack the ship, or work to convince the crew to help her take back the city from the forces working to undo it. She could be lost in space for a decade before returning to the city with new skills and powers, only to find it's changed in some way, all but unrecognisable to her, and with a whole new slew of problems. Within this sci-fi setting, and with the few but firm rules Stephen Cock has set in place, there is almost no limit to where they could take this story. This book was nearly a giveaway at $5 Australian for a digital copy. If they can maintain that price point, I'll be in on Terra Olympus for the long haul, as many volumes as they want to put out. A desire to buy in, to invest in a story like this is perhaps the greatest compliment I can pay it. I'd like to thank you all for your time, especially if you made it this far. There's more content than ever out there these days, and if you chose to spend some of your valuable time here with me for a while, then I'm very grateful. Please hit the thumbs up button, comment below to leave your opinion and help the algorithm. Feel free to hit the subscribe button if you like this sort of content and want to see more. I'll have more comic book reviews, particularly crowd-funded comic reviews, as well as writing workshops and time-lapse art videos up soon.